We were talking recently about doing modernization in your environment. Are you taking advantage of any of those technologies?
Yes, for the users, we have to make sure that they work together. They are more highly resilient, highly available using APIs to call. You can't just isolate the mainframe in one corner anymore.
I'm excited to have this conversation with Frank about what they're doing in their environment, share what we're doing in our environment, and we can see how modernization affects both of our organizations. Hi, I'm Matt Hogstrom. I'm a distinguished engineer with Broadcom, and welcome to another episode of Mainframe Insights. Today I'm joined by my friend Frank Leung. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. So my name is Frank Leung. So basically, I've got a role in a company basically running, we call the core technology platform for the mainframe. Basically, that includes the hardware, software, network, and performance. Yeah.
And Frank and I were talking at a conference recently, and we were sharing stories about how we're doing modernization. And so as an ISV, we're modernizing our environment, how we create ZOS instances and how we run our business. And in talking with Frank, it turned out that some of the challenges that we have are the same ones that he did. So I'm excited to actually have this conversation with Frank about what they're doing in their environment, share what we're doing in our environment, and we can see how modernization affects both of our organizations. So Frank, we were talking recently about how you guys were doing modernization in your environment, and would you like to just give a short description of what's going on there?
Yes, we are doing a lot in the mainframe of modernization space. So that's why I think one key things that we want to do is trying to do actually to have more automations, yeah, and then that can help us to basically modernize the administration of the mainframe as well as trying to make the work more efficient. And then so that we can basically make use of some skills that is already available in the market. For example, those university graduates, when they graduate from the university, and then basically they already equip those skills that can help to administrate the mainframe environment. And then so that we have a less dependency or less reliance on those very specialized mainframe skills.
Well, it's interesting what you said about university hires and new people, because we have the same challenge where a lot of the technology choices that are being taught in universities, people come out with fully understanding REST APIs, distributed technologies, and when they start coming to the mainframe, it's not that they're different ideas, they're just implemented differently. And being able to help onboard people and help them see the similarities so that they can be productive faster. Is that also your experience?
Yes, because I think once we actually try to modernize the overall mainframe administration, basically what we are using is also the APIs. And then what we are trying to do is to develop more infrastructure APIs so that people can use those APIs to manage the environment. And then also on the other hand, basically mainframe right now is also a kind of a integrated part of the whole ecosystem. And then, so that's why, basically, it will give a better experience for the new joiners, and then so that they can have the same experience across multiple platforms, so that they can use the same set of skills and also the tooling to help them to do the work. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had the same experience because we want to try to align the experience to be very familiar to the new people, but getting them to understand the mainframe is one aspect. And I'm curious, on the mainframe side, we've had also a challenge in getting people to understand the distributed side. Yeah. So for instance, I was just working with a colleague, and they were doing something in USS, and they said, I can't quite get this to work. And I said, well, here, let's share screens and we'll look at it. And then they were using iShell to get into USS, which seems so foreign to me. I'm used to just SSH in and whatnot. So it just reminded me that it's a learning experience on both sides of the aisle. Is that similar to what you're doing, and what are you doing for the mainframe team?
Yes, exactly. I think this is kind of the learning from the both sides. And then basically, I think the new generation can learn about the core skill of the mainframe. And then basically for those very experienced SME, yes, and then they can also uplift their capability, and then to also trying to learn the use of those open platform toolings. And then I think that is kind of a win-win situation, because I think for those people who don't understand the mainframe, basically they can start from something that they familiarize with. And then so that they can gradually acquire those core mainframe skills. When they try to develop the automation, they have to understand why or how they are able to do it on the mainframe. And on the other hand, basically, I think for those SME, I know that they have already have loads of experience on the mainframe. And then, but of course, right now, people are moving away from using the green screen.
Yeah.
And then especially it's not just the administrator, I think it's also the developer. And then also, as I've mentioned, basically the mainframe is the integral part of the whole ecosystem. Yeah, so that's why for the users, in the old days, they may still log on to the TSO green screen. But nowadays, basically they are all using the web interface, using APIs to call the services on the mainframe. So that's why I think those core SME, they also need to understand the open platform world, because I think they are now interacting with mainframe and in a very, very different way.
Yeah, I think that's true. And then one of the other areas that we're starting to see internally, and I'm curious if this is your experience, is packaging applications it's not done the way it used to be done, right? You now have OCI for containerized kind of deployments. IBM has introduced ZCX onto the platform. You can run containers in ZOS, you can run Z Linux. And so you see the entire mainframe ecosystem really embracing distributed technologies and infusing that into the mainframe. Are you taking advantage of any of those technologies?
Yes, for sure, because I think right now, from the mainframe point of view, we start to use a lot of open platform tooling, as well as some of the core mainframe component. They also have the open platform components that is required or rely on in order to provide the end-to-end functionality. So that's why we're also trying to put those workload back onto the mainframe, because I think we see the competitive advantage of the mainframe. Basically, they are more actually highly resilient, highly available, and also we have a very robust, for example, disaster recovery processes for the mainframe. So that's why we want to make use of those benefits and then to basically run the open platform workload on the mainframe. So that we can basically kind of have a more coherent and also integrated environment for basically for the end-to-end use of the of different functions or business transactions.
Okay, so talking about those different technologies, what it really does is it enables you to have choice. If I decide that perhaps for business continuity purposes, I want to run a particular workload that's distributed in nature alongside, say, DB2 CICS applications because I want to reduce latency, you really have the option of doing that. And it then doesn't become an us versus them thing. I'm thinking back to when I was a customer systems programmer, client server was coming out, and there was almost more of a battle for the IT environment, and I think that's gone. I'm curious if that's true in your environment, where it's really more collaborative, like you said. It's a giant ecosystem where you have lots of players, but they're playing to solve the business's problems as opposed to the IT landscape. Is that true in your environment?
So, yes, because the short answer is true, because I think, as I've mentioned right now, all the business transactions, basically, at some point, they will go through the mainframe. Yeah, and it's unlike the old days, basically. And then basically, mainframe is sitting on the corner of the data center and then processing transactions, and then there will be only limited interaction with the other platform. But now, it's very different, because I think everything gone mobile, and then everything gone APIs. Mainframe has a more interactive relationship with the other platforms. And then in order to solve the business problem, yes, we have to make sure that they work together in a single ecosystem. Yeah, otherwise, you can't just isolate the mainframe in one corner anymore.
We have the same approach where a lot of what we do at Broadcom is we deliver value to support the mainframe, but we choose to deliver it in a distributed packaging format. And that actually simplifies deployment, management over time, et cetera. And so seeing those blending is really exciting. Now, I do have another question for you. We had been talking about Ansible, and we're looking at internally using Ansible as just our common administrative language on the mainframe, on the distributed components. I'm curious, are you embracing Ansible on the mainframe?
So I would say we are at the forefront, yeah, because I think we start to use the Ansible in the quite early stage. And then before that, basically, we also try to make use of the other toolings like Jenkins, and also trying to use some even older, it's called we are using the Groovy script, and then trying to automate administration tasks on the mainframe. And then at that point, basically, without the Ansible, we need to actually interact with the API on our own. We have to write our own code. Yeah, but now with the Ansible, basically we have the CentOS collections, and then actually that still underlying make use of the CentOS MF API, but we are using it more intuitively. That means that we do not need to worry about how to interact with the APIs. Basically, we just write a simple Ansible playbook, and then so that we can basically do the work on the mainframe. And then I think that is a great improvement of basically the overall mainframe industry or the mainframe space. And then because I think trying to simplify the use of the APIs is also one of the key area, that improvement that we want to see. As I've mentioned, basically right now our team is mainly with actually the the composition is still mainly the core SME type of work, type of workforce. Yeah, and then they still need some time to pick up on how to use or how to do the coding and then to interact with the APIs. But now with the Ansible, basically they can learn quickly and then they can write the paper fairly easily, and then so that basically their productivity is much better than trying to write their own code to interact with the API.
So just out of curiosity, in your environment, we look to use Python primarily, but we find we often do calls out to Rex. Do you do the same in your environment?
So yes, still a mix, yeah, because I think most of the core mainframe automation, basically they are written in Rex programming, yeah, right. And then, but of course nowadays people, they are moving away from Rex and then to use Python. And then so that's why we still have a mixture. We tend to actually rely on the assets that we already have on the system. That means that the existing automation, if we can reuse them, then why not? And then, but for those new automations that we want to develop, then yes, we will tend to use the Python to develop our new automations. And then, of course, sometimes it's a kind of mixture. Some code is written in Python, and then at some point, basically, we will try to cause the Rex to do something.
It's almost there's a really interesting parallel between application development for business applications and the same for the administration. And what I'm referring to is we have all this intellectual property that we've developed over the years, and some of it's really good, it's valuable, and there's no sense in throwing it away just to go to a new language, but seeing this kind of hybrid solution where you're able to fuse them together and really get leverage out of your environment is really critical.
Yeah.
So I guess the last question I would have is about security. At Broadcom, we found that we're doing much more work around security outside the mainframe and integrating into a corporate directory. Is that something that you guys are looking at, or do you see that kind of union? Because it used to be that we managed everything kind of independently in the mainframe versus the distributed. But now we're saying, well, distributed is really kind of the primary mechanism, and then the mainframe fits into that. Is that similar in your environment?
So basically, I think we have been working on this initiative for a while, because I think we identified this security, not an issue, but I think the area that we have to ensure that basically we are not breaking the secure mainframe because of trying to open it up for the APIs or for the other automations.
Right.
So that's why I think what we want to achieve is we want to have a seamless transition from your open identity to the mainframe identity. Yeah, because I think we all know that mainframe, basically we are using different external security manager, and then to manage the assets on the mainframe. But the problem is those assets, they are not exposed to the open platform.
Right.
And then so that's why we need to find a kind of a bridge between the mainframe and also the open platform. Yeah, and then this is the key, because I think as you mentioned, basically many things right now is driven from the open platform.
Right.
And then how we can ensure that those people have the proper authority, and also they are basically fully authorized in order to do a piece of work on the mainframe. And then that is basically something that we have been working with Broadcom and then to try to find a solution. And then I think this is not just helping us basically as a customer, I think it's also helping the industry, because I think this is something that in the future, I think it will be more and more workload or actually the automation will be driven from the open platform. And then we need to ensure that the security of the mainframe, that basically is a competitive advantage of the platform, we maintain it going forward. We are not trying to break it yet because of the automation.
And that's what really makes it that, quote, hybrid platform, where it's the complementary interactions across the two sides that deliver better value. So we talked a lot about modernizing workflows. We talked about Ansible. We talked about security. Is there anything that we talked about or that we didn't talk about that you think we should address?
So something that we are thinking about, because I think we start to adopt quite a number of open platform toolings. And then like we use Ansible, we use the SMF workflow. And then we also, as you mentioned, we are trying to use the Python as our main programming language. And then something that we are also looking into is basically to create or actually adopt the infrastructure as code for the mainframe. And then this is one of our key initiatives, because I think we identified that there's a deficiency on the configuration management on the mainframe space.
Right.
And then basically we struggle to basically to ensure that there's no configuration drift on our system. So that's why I think infrastructure code may be an answer to this question. And then this is basically, we try to store all the infrastructure configuration into a source repository. What we are looking at is basically the GitHub. And then so that we can use the Ansible automation to deploy any changes on our infrastructure of configuration. And then so this can help us to monitor and then to track all the changes that we have made in the system, as well as to ensure that there's no, or try to minimize the human or manual update of the system configuration. And then that hopefully can help us to improve the, of course, the configuration management and also basically the change quality so that we have less problem with our menu changes in the future.
Well, you probably had a similar problem, I think we all have, where somebody makes a real simple change and it's not captured and then it gets lost at some point. So the infrastructure is good. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a really critical issue. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Matt.
And I just want to thank you too for joining us for this conversation. It's exciting to see how there's a lot of similarity between distributed technologies, what we're doing on the mainframe, and how we're really creating that lingua franca that allows the ability to engage, to manage, and to work with the technologies on both sides of the aisle. If you're interested in pursuing any of the items we talked about Ansible, we talked about REST APIs, we talked about security, there's a link on the screen to an article that I wrote, it's on LinkedIn, and it's talking about continuing education. This is so important because as practitioners and professionals in this era, we're really busy, and sometimes we don't have the opportunity, or perhaps we don't make the opportunity to be able to explore new technologies because we're so busy with our inbox. But it's critical for you professionally, it's critical to your business in terms of being able to maximize the benefit of IT to their unique qualities that they're delivering to their clients. So please review that. If you have any other questions, my email address will be out there and I'd be happy to engage with you. Have a great day and best wishes.